Hello, my marvellous sausages. I've done loads of Legend Lost Sector guides over the years, so I thought why not, for this season, rate them from worst to best. They're all Legend Lost Sectors, and you know, it's handy to know which ones are the best ones to run to get all the juicy exotic loot. So let's kick this one off with the one I hate the most, in number 11 position, because there's 11 of them, K1 Crew Quarters on the Moon. Ugh, I hate this one, mainly because, first of all, it takes so long to do. It can take between 6 to 12 minutes, really, depending on your loadout. It's an arc burn, which is quite nice this season, but one of the worst things about it are all the shanks and the hot knife modifier, which gives all the shanks solar shields. This can be incredibly irritating. Couple that with the fact that overloads can dodge in and out of cover, the overload champions, giving them time to recharge and then jump back in and smack you in the face. That's incredibly annoying. There's invisible marauders in it, there's barrier servitors in it who shield everyone unless you take them out. Midway through it, there's 2 tracer shanks hiding around the corner who will kill you easily in 2 shots. This'll get your teeth a-gnashing, and the final end boss battle can be incredibly irritating. First of all, we've got nightmare dregs because there's nightmare enemies on the moon, and secondly, you've got another barrier servitor up there who can shield the boss. It's all very sweaty and all very tight. This is my least favourite Lost Sector this season. At number 10, we have K1 Communion on the Moon. Another long one coming in at about 9 minutes. It's got a solar burn on it, and there's barrier and overload champions in it. Now, the Vandals drop mines. That's called the Arak No modifier. But each room can get pretty sweaty, from the first one with the encounter with the barrier servitor to the second room with lots of long-range scraps with the sniper Vandals up on the balcony and another barrier servitor as well. You've got a few corridors that you snake your way through until you get to the final room with an overload champion, a barrier champion, and a shank with a solar shield. It can all get quite intense, although the boss is pretty easy to kill if you get up there and kill him just as he's coming out of the doorway with your super. However, I don't really enjoy this one, but by the time you get to the end, and if you don't get an exotic to drop, it can feel like a complete nightmare. At number 9, we have the final Moon Lost Sector. You'll not be surprised, K1 Logistics. I find this one the least objectionable of them all. It's a fallen Lost Sector again. We've got barrier champions and overload champions. It's a void burn, and there are arc and solar shields in it as well. It takes between 8 and 9 minutes to finish. All the shanks have solar shields because it's got the hot knife modifier, but this is the problem with this Lost Sector. You've got so many different things going on. You've got the void burn and the arc and solar shields. Now, because of all the solar shields, it's pretty vital to take in a solar weapon, but with the void burn, I'd advise you taking in a void power weapon and a solar energy weapon to deal with the shields. But of course, it's entirely up to you because you've got a third element of arc in there as well, which makes this a big pain in the ass. Don't forget those tracer shanks and exploder shanks as well. It's generally a bit of a bloody nightmare. Number 8, we're off to the EDZ and Scavenger's Den. Don't like this one at all, to be perfectly honest. It's another fallen Lost Sector. There's a solar burn, we've got barrier champions, overload champions, there's scorched earth, which means they chuck shed loads of grenades. It can take between 6 to 7 minutes, so a bit shorter than the moon to do as an average player. You do get Vandals in it shooting you from afar, which is incredibly annoying, plus invisible marauders ramming their knives up your jacksie as well. Certain parts have mines in them that if you shoot will blow up, of course, but you'd be surprised at how far away you have to be, otherwise they will kill you. Be careful of this. And the final room can be really quite chaotic with a barrier champion, an overload champion, and a massive fallen captain with an arc shield who can be incredibly annoying. So make sure you take out the barrier champion first, otherwise you'll be shielding the overload and generally making your life a bit of a bloody misery. Another one to avoid, really. Number 7 is the Concealed Void on Europa. Another fallen Lost Sector. Barrier champions, overload champions, a solar burn, solar and void shields as well, and the modifier is Arachno, so the bloody Vandals drop those annoying time-slowy mines. Again, about the same length really as Scavenger's Den, maybe a touch shorter at 6 to 7 minutes. The worst thing about this is that you're doing a lot of scrapping jumping on platforms, and there's lots of that sizzly Vex milk that you can fall into and can kill you quite easily. You've got your barrier servitors who will disappear and move from left to right, particularly if you try to shoot them with rockets, so that's very annoying. But they do have a nice little bug sometimes where they stick in the Vex milk and you can just hammer them without them recharging. You do have some incredibly annoying exploder shanks as you're jumping across a chasm to the end, all topped off with an overload champion. And the final boss room doesn't have any champions in it. It has a rather large fallen captain, but you do have void normal servitors in here who do tend to shield the boss. You need to take them out very quickly as well. Overall, not too bad, but still a little bit irritating and not a good one to farm. Number 6, we have Perdition on Europa, a Vex lost sector, barrier champions and overload champions in the form of minotaurs who charge at you. It's an arc burn, and there are loads of arc shields in it, particularly the arc harpies. They can be incredibly annoying. The modifier is called Shockers. They drop pools of Radiolorian liquid from the goblins, you know, the little Vex foot soldiers. Completion on this can really vary. It can take between 6 to 7 minutes, but you can do it a lot quicker if you use the Thunderlord with built-in overload. We've all got this if you've bought this season of Plunder from the treasure chest in the helm, so make sure you do pick that up as this cuts this down a lot. It's 3 rooms and it's got wyverns, which are particularly icky, but you know, it's not too bad and the boss fight is very easy indeed. It's time to move into the top 5, and we have the Conflux on Nessus. Now, this is a Cabal lost sector. We've got barrier champions and unstoppable champions, bearing in mind they're both Cabal. It's a solar burn, and we've got loads of void shields on the Incendios. Now, it's pretty fast to do. It's between 5 to 6 minutes, which is quite nice. The Scorched Earth modifier does have them chuck lots of grenades at you, but there's one thing you do have to be aware of in this lost sector. It has endless spawns of enemies, so once you've killed the last 2 champions, there's an unstoppable and an overload at the top end. Make sure you just go for the big boss and that'll terminate it and open the chest, otherwise you'll go on for bloody ever. There's also lots of cover in this, which can make it a lot easier, plus it's one big room, so it's kind of bang straight in the middle for farming capability niceness. And at number 4, we've got the Bunker E15 Europa Vex lost sector. Might come as a surprise to some that this is so high up. I like this one. Barrier champions, overload champions, void burn and void shields, which is quite nice to have the 2 there. There's shocker goblins who leave gunge at their feet that'll electrocute your tootsies. But the best thing about this are the army of Braytech droids that you release as you go through the Legend lost sector, who draw the fire of all the enemies, making this a lot less sweaty. You've got barrier goblins at one stage, and the final room is probably the most difficult part of it. But with your Braytech mates taking fire, that really helps you out, and the 3 overload champions, yes, 3 who appear at the end in the final room, they can really help you in dealing with those. If you don't want to go up to the gantries at the side, you can hang on back at the corridor outside and pick off the overloads one at a time. Not too bad at all, and not as stressy as others. Takes again about 6 to 7 minutes to complete. Number 3, the Quarry on the EDZ. This is a Cabal lost sector. We've got barrier champions and unstoppable champions, void burn, solar and void shields as well. It's short. There's only 2 main rooms. There's lots of cover. It's got Scorched Earth, so you do expect to have lots of grenades being piled at you. There are also a nice amount of explosive barrels in this one, which really help you give a bit of a kick in. I find this easier than the Conflux, and you may even be able to complete it a lot quicker than the 5 to 6 minutes. That's a generous estimation, really. The final room can be a bit stressy, and you've got to watch up for the enemies up to the left there, but there are lots of places to take cover, and you can also back up out of the room into the little cubby hole as well to protect you. Nicely farmable, this one. I would recommend it. Now we're getting into really short territory. Number 2, Excavation in Site 12 on the EDZ. This again is a Cabal lost sector. We've got barrier champions and unstoppable champions. There's a solar burn on it. It does say there's arc shields, but there aren't any shields in this one at all, which makes this really good to farm again and again. Like I say, it's short, about 3 to 4 minutes, and it's got the Scorched Earth modifier where you're going to get lots of grenades thrown. Now you've got your first room with an unstoppable, easy to dispatch. You can hide around the central rock there just to tease him in. Then once you get out into the main area, that's the final part of it really. It's really cool to launch a massive rocket in at the bunch of gits on the bridge to take them out. But what can happen sometimes is that the barrier champions will leg it up the hill and then stand on that vantage point and shoot you in the cave before you go across the bridge. So my recommend is that you kill the unstoppable champion who'll charge you first of all, and if you can't get the barrier champions, just pick them off from the cave there, from afar. Long range weaponry is the key there. The boss is pretty easy to kill. You do have a couple of nightmares in this as well, and an unstoppable champion lurking around the boss area. But generally, it's fast and easy to do. I highly recommend it for getting those exotic engrams. And finally, here we are, the top spot farm. The best one to farm is Sky Dock 4 on the EDZ. It's a Cabal lost sector. We've got 1 barrier champion and you've got 3 unstoppables as well. It's a solar burn with void shields. This is the fastest to do. You've seen some people running it in under a minute. I can do it without even bothering, about 3 minutes or so. So it's not that hard at all. You've got 3 rooms. The champions are all kind of close together. You've got an unstoppable, then you've got a barrier, and then another unstoppable, and you're into the final room. You've got a pestilence modifier on it, which means void grenades drop at Scion's feet. It can get a little bit intense in the final room, but if you take out the unstoppable champion and then leap up to the top gantry area and take the boss out from there, you'll make sure to get yourself a nice, clean, quick run and a great way to farm those exotic engrams. So anything in that top 5, I'd really recommend that you jump in and do when it is available for that day. Now I do also have guides on all these Legend Lost sectors. I'll leave a link in the playlist at the end of the vid. Do you agree with my list? Do you agree with the positions in the top 11? Let me know your thoughts. I do love to read them. And I just want to give a big thank you to all my Tier 2 sausage members. Here's your wonderful credits. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It does mean an awful lot. And don't forget, if you enjoyed the vid, give me a like and subscribe. That would also be fantastic. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you all again very soon. Sausage out.